couple of the Decepticons are already on Earth mining a resource called Ore 13, which was like Energon, but it made them more powerful, which you find out later that Shockwave was the one that sent Ore 13. He sent like 13 different ores across the galaxy to different planets. Ties into everything later. But Megatron shows up because the Decepticons were not following his orders, and Decepticon beat them to shreds. Well, he's Starscream anyway. And then you follow into it like, 3 Earthlings fall into the hands of the Autobots to be protected and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They follow into the Headmaster sequence pretty quickly with Sunstreaker getting taken, his head getting cut off, and the human that he was with turned into his Headmaster. Well, kind of into the head. They made an army of Sunstreakers with humans being Headmasters controlling the bodies of the fake Sunstreakers, and they started a whole thing like that, which turned out to be a plot by Scorponok. Drawing a blank on the names, it's been so much. I've just finished the last 3 issues. But yeah, they split everything up into pretty good chunks. The collective editions of the IDW Transformers puts everything in chronological order, because you've got things like Spotlight issues, which follow certain characters. You've got the trades or the single issues, and they put those in proper order, along with a lot of the stuff that came out later but was set back into the past. Mm-hmm. So instead of like the Transformers crashing on Earth and being in slumber for 4 million years, they have been fighting the war for 4 million years. So Optimus has been there at the Spear Hunt for 4 million years instead of being frozen.
Instead of being frozen on Earth for 4 million years, yeah.
They followed everything to just Megatron ripping the Matrix out of Prime, Hot Rod getting it back, and coming to Earth, and it was like fused to his chest, and reclaiming all that. And Phase 2, like I said, I started reading just the trades of that. I was following the chronological order to that because I didn't get my hands on the collective editions. Mm-hmm. And I preferred More Than Meets the Eye, which was not Hot Rod, it was Rodimus. He changed his name to Rodimus. So he never became Rodimus Prime.
Just Rodimus.
Just Rodimus. He did a play on Rodimus Prime. He did a whole thing about that back in Phase 1, but everyone stopped calling him Hot Rod. He's now Rodimus, but he was still Hot Rod, though. His attitude was still Hot Rod. There was times where he acted mature, but he still acted like Hot Rod. Ultra Magnus had a gimmick. If you remember the G1 version of Ultra Magnus, it was the white Optimus Prime cab with the battle armor on him. Mm-hmm. Ultra Magnus and this. It's called a barrel. He was like a heavy loader. Okay. And he had a gimmick where he could carry things more than his weight. Like he was a tiny guy. Like think that Gunpla, and then he put on armor and became taller. Mm-hmm. So it was like the first armor was what he looked like underneath, which he was white and green, but he had a mustache. His actual name was Animus Donimus, I believe it was, or that was his brother. Okay. And then he put on another set of armor, which was the Magnus armor, which was given to him by Tyrest, which was like the guy who made the laws of Cybertron. You go into whole stories about Ultra Magnus, Drift, Swerve. Cyclonus wasn't as a Decepticon. He was actually with Galvatron all the way back, like like 8 million years ago, before Optimus Prime was even pulled out of the pious pools of Iacon. They go into the religion and stuff like that. Like, you meet the guiding hand, which was Primus, and the 4 primes that he created, which you find out have been around like this entire time. They all just forgot who they were. So, like, Tyrest was a prime. This guy named Rung, who he transformed into, like, nothing. He was called the Useless One for a while. Turns out he was Primus, and he could make more matrices. You find that out later in The Lost Light.
Now, is the plural of matrices or matrices?
They play a joke on that as well.
Do they?
They don't know. There's a whole joke about that. Tyrest was a prime. You end up meeting everybody, but like they called him the Necrobot. He was like the prime of death or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he forgot who he was, but he had all this gear, and he went around and collected the knowledge of every dead Cybertronian and made a plaque and statue of them and recorded their death and their history and made sure that they were remembered. You get into the whole Dark Cybertron, which was Shockwave was using the ores and was basically bringing the end of everything. So the crew of the Lost Light showed back up, and Optimus showed up, and they all started fighting him, and in the end, Shockwave and Bumblebee got sucked into this like black hole, but turns out Shockwave didn't. Shockwave got sent back in time to 10 million years in the past, so he became one of the original 13 primes, which was Onyx Prime, which was the leader of the Beasts.
Okay.
So he created the Maximals.
Oh.
So you run into like Rhinox and Optimal Optimus and the Megatron, but they're not all called that. So you just see them, but they're the size of normal Cybertronians.
So they're huge.
But beast-like. And they do a whole ploy on that later on. Later on. We start running into the lost colonies, the 13 lost colonies of Cybertron, which in the past turns out the primes had each sent a Titan to go colonize a new world to form the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And the colonies got cut off from Cybertron and that whole ordeal. Optimus Prime goes to Earth again. He ended up stopping Galvatron, which straight up murdered him like a boss. RC stood there and watched. Turns out RC was actually a male. And Jyaxis, which was like this mad scientist that worked with Galvatron, changed him into her.
Okay.
Apparently her spark was more of a female. That whole transgender thing changed RC into a male, and turns out RC was actually Galvatron's twin brother. So that was a thing.
So now twin sister? Or is it...
Not you know how RC looks?
Yeah.
Just think male, but look like Galvatron.
Oh, okay.
So when he became she, got changed into that. Turns out there was a bunch of there was no females on Cybertron after the 13 primes, because they all scattered off to the colonies and no one went female anymore. And then after they started bringing in females like left and right, like just females started showing up everywhere, and it just became a thing. I mean, it was good. After the Dark Cybertron thing, they went from Robots in Disguise to Optimus Prime, which was him going to Earth. And I could have done without the human politics. I could have done without the humans. I could have done without them going to Earth. And so many people have stated this as well. The Earth bits
weren't necessary.
It actually dragged on. There was a lot of tie-in issues with G.I. Joe and the Visionaries and the Revolution event that I didn't read all the Revolution events, which had stuff with Cup and stuff like that. But I just read through the Transformer stuff and called it good. Lost Light was where it was at. They changed Robots in Disguise to Lost Light. After the Dark Cybertron event, Megatron went Autobot. He took Bumblebee's emblem because he thought Bumblebee was dead, which you end up finding out later he wasn't. Starscream becomes the ruler of Cybertron.
Coordination Starscream. This is bad.
He had the helm. He had the crown. But Megatron goes with the crew of the Lost Light because they wanted to find the guiding hand, because Megatron stated he wanted to be judged by the guiding hand. No, sorry, the Knights of Cybertron. Because he felt that they would be more just because it's Megatron. But he actually ended up turning a leaf. Became a good guy. Went good by everybody. I enjoyed more of the Lost Light than I did the Optimus Prime stuff. Optimus Prime followed the whole 13 Prime things, but the Lost Light did Primus and all of that, and it's like a D&D adventure in space. It was like an event, like a different dungeon type thing going on, like everything, like it was just way more fun. I mean, literally, you read the first issue, like the first volume of More Than Meets the Eye, and you are hooked in immediately. There's no politics, there's no humans, no nothing like that. Just a crew of like 200 Autobots just going. Swerve opens up his own bar called Swerve. You learn more about Ultra Magnus. Rewind and Chrome Dome are a couple. Tailgate and Cyclonus end up becoming a couple in the end. The Lost Light issues ended up having about a total of 100 issues.
Okay.
If you're talking More Than Meets the Eye and the tie-in issues and the annuals and stuff like that. It didn't tie into the Unicron issues because it had its own cataclysmic event, which was they did a thing called the Functionist Universe where they went to another universe where the Functionist Council had taken over. Mm-hmm. They did some stuff there. Megatron got left behind. He stayed behind to fight the war. And when he shows back up, they find Luna 1, sorry. The first Cybertron moon had gone missing. This is back during the whole Primus fiasco. Mm-hmm. So the moon disappeared, and then they had been taking, like, I can't remember which guiding hand member it was, but they had taken the Necrobot's world, which was actually a mold, and molded it around other planets and turned them into other Cybertrons to fight this entity. And the entity was the Functionist Council. They had transformed Cybertron into their version of Primus, which was the whole Unicron trilogy thing where Primus versus Unicron. At the issue 24, Rung, aka Primus, used his body, the last remaining of his bits, to create 12 matrices. And everybody had to open up the matrix, specific points on Primus, without killing the bots that were still on there, because turns out there were still bots still living on Cybertron with the Primus Cybertron thing. Alternate realities. And you see who can open up a matrix and who can't. Ultra Magnus wasn't able to until he ejected out of his 2 extra bodies and was able to open it. You see a Scavenger, which is a Decepticon. They have their own little bit in there. They were amazing. Them and Swerve opened it together, I believe. Cyclonus and Tailgate opened one. I believe it was. Hot Rod wasn't able to. His arm actually got blown up. So it was either one of those he could or he couldn't. It's not really explained. He says he can't do it. So he tosses it to Megatron, and Megatron is able to open it. Then there's the whole Unicron event, which tied into Optimus Prime, which was Unicron was created by Shockwave, aka Onyx Prime, in the past. Shockwave did this whole thing, which ended up backfiring, of course, because Shockwave is a cold, hard calculator, but an idiot. And Unicron goes through and just starts annihilating planet after planet after planet after planet, which were lost colonies of Cybertron. Turns out each one had a Titan buried on there, had some tie-in with Cybertron, and everybody ends up going to Earth because Cybertron is destroyed. They end up doing a last stand there. Optimus Prime sacrifices himself, and hooray, Earth is saved. Everyone lives on Earth. Windblade is now the ruler of Cybertron after they had kicked Starscream out. Starscream sacrificed himself to help save the universe.
Wow, so Starscream actually did something.
Oh, he actually did some good stuff. It's just he did it in Starscream's way. So they co-inhabit Earth with other alien races now. They're starting to expand out into Earth and all that. So the last 3 issues of the IDW series was Unicron number 6, Optimus Prime number 25, and Lost Light number 25.
Okay.
At the end of Unicron number 6 was when you see the end of Unicron